Hi, everyone. This is William Ford from AtlantaMusicCritic.com. Today, I'm going to be talking with Marianne Cornetti, the internationally renowned mezzo-soprano. Marianne is currently the artistic director of the Pittsburgh Festival Opera. We're going to be talking about her early career, including some of its challenges, as well as her experiences in North America, Europe, and South America. I think you'll really enjoy getting to know Marianne and to appreciate all that she's achieved. Remember, please like, subscribe, and comment. Here you go. Appreciate the opportunity to talk with you.
Oh, absolutely. It's a pleasure.
I did read some biographical material about you and some of the interviews you've had with other people. You had kind of a crisis in your early 20s with regard to being able to continue singing because of an illness that you had?
I had developed a thyroid problem, terrible thyroid problem. And so I had to leave Cincinnati for a year, but then I came back and I was 30 miles out of Cincinnati and I had lost my nerve. And so I called my parents and I said, you know, I maybe this is not really what I want to do. And my mother said, are you sure? You know, you don't have to do music, but, you know, you have to have some sort of education. You have to have it. And so I came home that evening and my parents waited up and they said, you know, it's all right if you don't want to sing, but you definitely have to have an education. So William, I that's all I did was sing. And so I took an aptitude test that showed my strengths and weaknesses. And my strength, the first thing on the list was music.
Of course.
And this, yeah, of course. And the second thing was human services. I love people. And the third thing was gardening. And I was always in the yard with my dad, mowing the lawn and doing the flower beds. And so I decided to take the top two and put them together. And I was going to be a speech pathologist. I decided to go to Penn State for a year. I went to Penn State, but I had heard that Duquesne University had a phenomenal speech pathology degree. So I looked into that, and the admissions officer at the university, he was new, and he said to me, he said, my God, Marianne, you have all of these credits in music. Why don't you double major and finish your degree? And I said, no, I'm done. I'm done. I want to continue with speech pathology. And he said, why don't you just speak to the speech pathology advisor before you make that decision? And I said, well, I can do that. So I went off and found the speech pathology advisor. And she said, who gave you this advice? This is wrong advice. They're two highly concentrated fields. You're not able to do both of these at the same time. She said, I would suggest that you finish your music degree, take the electives on this side with speech pathology that you have to get through, and finish it that way. And then when you're finished with your music degree, then pick up and start then continuing with your speech pathology. I decided to do that. And of course, William, I started to sing again. And the bug really bit me. And everybody's reaction was, my gosh, what are you doing? And where have you been? And why are you thinking about speech pathology? And my teacher, Mia Novich, who was at Duquesne, just said, you are so talented. So I went along, you know, and did this for a couple of months. And I came back into my teacher's studio. And I was so confused. And I said, Mia, I just need to talk to you about where I am. And she said, sure. And I said, well, you know, the bug has bitten me again. And I said, I pushed all of this stuff down that I didn't want to sing. And now that I'm singing, I'm really enjoying it, but I am not Maria Callas type. I thought being a singer was being a diva and you had an entourage and you had your furs and all of this kind of stuff. And she said, and I said, and I love so many other things, sports, and I don't think I can eat, drink, and sleep music 24/7. And she came over to me, and it was really the turning point in my life and career. And she grabbed me by the shoulders, and she was also a very talented singer that had a career. And she grabbed me by the shoulders and she looked square in my eye and she said, Marianne Cornetti, if you don't sing, it will haunt you the rest of your life because this is what you're supposed to do. And you know what, William? I never looked back. I never turned around and everything went forward.
Where did you study music further?
I had started out at Manhattan School of Music in New York City.
Got it.
In 81 when I had graduated. But, that wasn't the right fit for me. I came from a very small town and there were no dorms. And so there was an apartment that was found for me through my teacher's minister. And this person worked for the Methodist Church of New York City. But the sad part was she was a raging alcoholic and, came home with a pint of scotch every night. And so I lasted there just 6 months. But then I transferred immediately to Cincinnati Conservatory. And then, of course, the thyroid problem happened. And then I went to Duquesne, and that's where I finished. And then from there, I went to the Pittsburgh Opera Young Artist Program. Yeah, once I finished college in 88, then in 89, I'd actually made my debut with Pittsburgh Opera in 89, and then I was in the Young Artist Program from 90 to 92.
I remember you told me something about one of your first gigs was in Atlanta.
Well, one of my very first major roles, I'd gone to the Met and I was there as a planned artist, and a planned artist, sings all the small roles and you're there for 6-8 months out of the year. So I did that from 93 to 98. And in that time period, of course, I was auditioning for other things. And Fred Scott, of course, was at Atlanta, and I was auditioning for the role of Finena in Nabucco. And I auditioned in 1995 for them. And my agent got back to me and said that they really liked me and they wanted to hire me. Oh, I was thrilled. About 3 or 4 months later, my manager called back and he said, well, I have good news and bad news. He said, which one do you want to hear first? And I said, well, let's hear the bad news first. And he said, well, unfortunately, Atlanta Opera is postponing the Nabucco for another year. So it will be in 97. But they want you to sing Azucena in Trovatore. And I said, what? He said, yeah, Fred Scott truly believes that you can do this. And I remember my knees started to shake. I said, oh my gosh. And I said, you know what? Don't tell him anything yet. I'm going to fly to New York on the weekend to my teacher. And I started to sing through it. And she said, this is like a glove for you, Marianne. Go for it. And it was Fred Scott who gave me that opportunity, who launched me really into this career, this major, doing the major roles. Because Tito Capobianco was my mentor, and he was so supportive of me, but he truly never thought I would be a major role singer. He thought I would always do the compromario roles. And when this started to take place with Atlanta, because what happened, my Trovatore was so successful, there was a manager there who wasn't even my manager, said to my manager, we have to get Marianne to Hawaii. There's an Amneris in Aida next year. She has to do it. And that pole vaulted me into this big repertoire. And in I guess it was maybe 97 or 8, Tito said, Mariana, you made a liar out of me. This is your repertoire. It's incredible what you're doing. So, and then he was, very proud and happy that this is what I was doing. And when I think about almost doing 300 Aidas and 150 or 60 Trovatores, and all of the other, roles that I've done, even some of the Zwischenfach roles like Abigail. I sang that at the Met. I've sang it so many times. It's really a soprano role. But with my voice, I was considered what they call in Italy a falcone, where you have that extension at the top of your voice, but you still have that mezzo sound. And so I did roles like Ortrud from Lohengrin and Santuzza from Cavalleria, Gioconda from Gioconda, Ponchielli's Gioconda. So I did, some of that soprano repertoire. Lady Macbeth, Verdi's Lady Macbeth. And it was Fred Scott who had me sing my first Cavalleria. And he said, Marianne, I want you to sing Lady Macbeth. And I said, oh, you're crazy. No, 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 no. And this was in 1997. He said, I'm telling you, you're going to sing it. And he was right. He was right.
And so from that point on, you have pretty much been on nearly every continent singing.
Oh, yeah. I have been on basically every continent in all of the major theaters all through Europe. All of them. It's incredible when I think about the theaters that I've been in Europe. And that really was the vast majority of my career was in Europe. I mean, I've sung at the Met, Trovatore and Ballo in Maschera, and but I did all the small roles too, and I did Abigail and Aida. But Tito also said to me, he said, your career will be in Europe. They understand your voice much more than we do here in America, because I had a big voice. It was colored. It was not. It had a sound of what the Europeans liked in a mezzo. So, but I've been many theaters.
Given all that experience, have you found audiences different across the world
compared to our audiences here in America?
Sure.
Our audiences, of course, we don't have the tradition here in America as they do in Europe, or even, I could even say Asia. The Japanese are so educated in opera. I'm not saying the Americans aren't, because they are, but we haven't had the tradition long enough. You can go to La Scala, and it's the top ring of La Scala. They're called the Loginisti, and they are the real aficionados of opera. You have them in Berlin. Those people, they have listened and listened. It's part of their culture, where opera, it's not quite yet part of our culture. We have it, and we've built many new theaters and whatnot. But the audiences, say for instance in Spain, are so unbelievably warm. Oh my gosh, they're just incredible audiences. You can go to La Scala and have them, just go crazy. But I've also been there when they've booed people. I mean, booed them right off the stage. I sang in Parma, Italy in 2006, a Trovatore. It's a little bit unnerving, but it's like a circus in a lot of ways, because in the middle, especially in Parma, they'll just start screaming, "Brava Cornetti!" If you're singing a big high note or a cadenza or a beautiful line, they start "Brava, brava." But they also annihilated the poor soprano, who just was, I don't know what was wrong, but she couldn't get those high notes. And they said, "Vai casa, go home, go home." It was terrible. But, it is that way in Europe. Now, you have places like the Concertgebouw in Amsterdam, that fantastic concert hall. I have sung many performances there. The one I remember that just was incredible was when I sang Ortrud in concert. Oh my gosh. When you're coming down those steps for your, you make your entrance for your curtain call, And that audience just went crazy. It is the most exhilarating feeling, because they really understand, they really get it. France can be great. You know what? Sometimes the Germans theaters can sit on their hands a little bit. They're a little bit colder. Palermo, southern Italy, they love it. They scream and yell and shout, and so. But our audiences here are also very warm, and I think our audiences here would never. I shouldn't say would never, because I've heard them boo, but very rarely. We're a much more polite audience in America. We don't boo, but we'll stand on our feet and give people a standing ovation. Sometimes I think they don't deserve a standing ovation, and people still come to their feet. But it's just, I think a lot of it is society. How it's part of the culture.
Right. I think in the US, we'll give a standing ovation to anything and anybody, and it's kind of lost its meaning.
I totally agree with you. Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
We met when you had your Pittsburgh Festival Opera young singers.
Yes, the young artists.
What do you advise them, if you give any advice at all, with regard to having a career in opera?
In some ways, it's really different now from when I was starting out, but in some ways it's not. And what I mean is, we've just survived the most horrific time in our lives, and it spooked really a lot of singers, because they never want to go through that nightmare of losing all of their money, and there was nothing to fall back on. There was nothing to protect them. And a lot of singers are thinking now, even the younger ones are thinking, well, maybe I should get that second degree just in case. And there are a lot of singers in my category who are just retiring. Then there's the other category that are in their mid to upper 40s that are really thinking, do I want to do that again, or do I want to look for a teaching job? And they're going back for master's degrees now. The young ones who are now like a young artist, I'm going to say probably they're the least affected by this, because they haven't really gotten going yet, but they're a little bit leery, but they have that want of getting out there and singing. You have to be prepared. You have to have the talent. You have to have a great teacher. You have to have a great manager. These are things that you still have to do. That was the same with me. Now, the young artists have to do it in a different way. They don't have to necessarily go and have an audition person to person. You send in videos. Well, I'm going to tell you something. I hate them. You don't see the person walk in. You don't see the nervousness. That video could have taken 12 takes, and finally they got it. I want to see raw, up and close. I want to feel their, the harmonics. I want to see how they handle nervousness or whatever. And I think this is something that is really much bigger to their generation. They have to be much more savvy with media, how they're being put out there, because we now know that we don't have to spend all this money going around in auditions, doing an audition tour. I don't think that way. I told my staff, we are still going to be in person. It has to be that way, because I want to see a singer. But the group that I have, they're all hungry. Will they all make it? Nope, they won't. And can I tell you which ones? And I can take an educated guess, but you never know. There are people that develop much slower, like me. Like Tito said, oh, I thought you would be a comprimario. Look what happened. So I encourage them because I believe. I've taken them because I believe in them. I believe in their talent. You have to put the work in. It's hard as nails. It's so expensive, William, to have a career now. I was very fortunate. I had sponsors. I was a really, I had people here in Pittsburgh that truly believed in me and really took a lot of that burden off of me. Today, it's brutal. It costs so much, but I would never tell them not to do it. Go for it. You have to at least try, because I almost made the wrong turn and I didn't. And I'm telling you, I would have probably been not a very happy speech pathologist. But you have to be prepared. You have to put the time in it. You have to understand what this career is truly all about. It is not easy, William. It is not easy. But when you love to sing as much as I love to sing, and I know a lot of these young artists love to sing, they're talented. So you got to jump. You just got to keep going. There are singers who are technically perfect that mean nothing to me. And then there are singers who are maybe not technically perfect, but they move me. I can take somebody and think, oh, that's just incredible technique. But if it doesn't move me.
It seems to me that the Pittsburgh Festival Opera has kind of shifted its focus away from the summer downscaled, smallish venues to something that's more focused toward getting into the community. Is that a permanent change, or is that just the adaptation to the pandemic?
Well, you know what, William, when I came on to Pittsburgh Festival Opera and I saw that they only had 3 weeks of a festival, that's all they had. There was nothing more. I said, my God, how do you sustain through the year? How do you make cash flow? I only saw 1 or 2 things. And to me, they just were not up to my standard. I have equated this festival as like in Parma, Italy. They have their season, and then they have the Verdi Festival in the middle of the summer. And I said, this is the way I look at it. We have our festival. That is the thing that is positioned. We will continue with that. We will continue with our young artist program in the summer. But I said, I want to be on sort of the shoulder of that summer series to bring in, and this came about because of the pandemic, the concert series, The Legends in the Limelight. We didn't know if people were coming. And I said, we'll reposition them again for 22. So I said, why don't we start this concert series, bringing in, these are all major stars, but they're friends of mine. So many of my colleagues are so willing to come to help me help the company. And this Legends in the Limelight concert series, of course, do I want it 4 months in a row? Absolutely not. But that's the way the pandemic forced my hand. So what I want to do is 2 in the spring, 2 in the fall. But the festival itself will take place. You know, the Pagliacci has been repositioned again for next year. And the Falling and the Rising will be next summer also. So we will have that festival. I want to always remain with that. But I also want to be visible throughout the year. When I came on board in December, I said, visible, viable, victorious. The more visible we are, the more viable we become, and we're victorious in getting this out into the community. I want all of this area to know who we are. But I have a lot of interesting things that I want to do that's not so much in a theater, but they are within the community. Event places that I would like to put on an opera. You know, we're not Pittsburgh Opera. Pittsburgh Opera is where I was raised. That's my home. They do big grand opera. We do much more intimate settings. The one thing about me is this is my home. Pittsburgh is my home. I want to unite us all. I never want to tramp on anybody else's toes, ever, 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 ever. And I hope that people would feel the same way about us. I started the Cornetti Candid Corona Conversations. From that full circle to now what we're doing as a movie, Market Damo's Liza Strada. We needed somebody to produce it. You know, I could get the material, but then we needed somebody to edit it. Ian Crammond, he was at Pitt getting his degree in film, producing and directing and all of this kind of stuff. And so we hired him to come and edit these Cornetti Candid Corona Conversations because they picked up very quickly. Everybody loved this. And so from there, we then produced our online 5-week young artist program. And that was all virtual. I said, you know, we're going to continue, even if it's virtual. And it was rich and robust with master classes, voice teachers and coaches and all of that. But then we produced what we called Oh Wow. Everybody started to, you know, make these little videos from their homes, and then you could put two people together and all of that. I said, well, why can't we do that with our young artists? And we could make whole scenes. And it was Ian who came up with using something called an Osmo. And we sent that Osmo to each young artist when we had all of our plans, how we wanted to make the Oh Wow with our director, Derek Brown. And it was like a surfing channel series. But to do the filming, Ian would send this Osmo to each of the young artists. They would film themselves, and then he edited and did all of the splicing and all of that kind of stuff. And from there, we then started to do, like we did the Wicked Wagner Weekend. And this has grown and grown and grown. And we did the Christmas Yule log. That was really, it was with all the staff, really. And then we did the Valentine's video. And then we did our very first film of the Cendrillon, which was in the schools. And that was adapted by our education director, Seamus Ricci. He adapted Pauline Viardot's Cendrillon, and we actually did the video or did the shooting out at This Is Red in Homestead. So, and it was just released the 16th, a couple of days ago, to the public. It is charming beyond words.
Where's it available?
Online on our website.
Okay.
And then from there, you know, the Liza Strada, I wanted to reposition all of this for this summer to be outdoors. When we started to see that the cost of building an entire stage to put this in a parking lot somewhere for 3 performances, and we weren't sure how many people were going to come, we switched gears because the costs were enormous. So we switched gears, and I said the bigger picture is the movie. I mean, we've done a whole year of all of this. So we have a producer in Lynn Squilla. We have a cameraman, and that's what they're doing right now is the Liza Strada. It's being filmed over at the Kerry Blast Furnace and the Pump House areas. So when you think about that little Cornetti's Candid Corona Conversation going into a full-blown film in a year, William, I got to pinch myself.
Sure.
Amazing.
Congratulations on that, particularly during such a difficult time.
Oh my gosh. With the pandemic, everybody said, my gosh, Marianne, you just came on board December of 2019. And I said, well, you know what? You gotta make it work. And you can't go under a rock. If we went under a rock, we wouldn't be in existence now. The one thing that the pandemic has done, William, has forced us to be really creative. And that's what we've had to do. And, I hate to say, and I tread lightly on this, that the pandemic, there was a silver lining to the pandemic. I mean, there were a lot of people's lives who were lost. I see that Graham Vick just died from England. He was one of my great directors. I'm devastated by his news, and he died of COVID. But there is some sort of silver lining to all of this, that we all had to adjust and really use our creative thinking. And Pittsburgh Festival Opera really embraced it.
Excellent.
William, thanks so much. It's such a pleasure.
Hey, pleasure talking to you too.